What's up? Happy Friday. Welcome into Let's Bet It. Lauren Jabbar here with Jared Smith. Jared, how are you? That was a crazy game last night that we witnessed, and we're going to get into that in a second. But Friday, we got week 5 college football, week 4 NFL. We're going to break it all down for you today. How you doing?
How the heck are you, Lauren Anjabara?
How
Everything's
the
good.
heck are you? I'm good.
Lost the Nerfy last night. That was bad. Got a little lucky there at the Bengals team total. That was good. So can't really complain.
Mm-hmm.
Win some, lose some. On to the weekend. I'm at that point now in the week. I was telling the producers before the show. Friday usually is that time when the prep is done, the picks are all locked in, and I'm kind of chomping at the bit, getting ready for what should be a very the college slate this week is really
So
tasty.
excited.
We have
Mm-hmm.
6 ranked versus ranked and a bunch of other, secondary ranked games that are really exciting. And the NFL slate it's always good. But the London game, I'm gonna have to wake my ass up at like 6 a.m. to watch that game on Sunday morning. We're gonna have it on live during the show. We'll have some, not like live breakdowns, but we'll have some updates for you Sunday morning. But it's gonna be a really
Mm-hmm.
fun weekend. Excited as always, my friend.
It is going to be a fun weekend. I actually really love the college slate. I'm giving out a couple of my bets
Yeah.
today. I'll be on the show tomorrow with Mark Zinno, going to give out a few more then. I know, Jared, you're going through your whole slate today because you'll be on your Fox Sports show tomorrow, which is going so well. So excited for you. But we have a lot to
Thank you.
dive into today, starting with the Thursday night football game. Last night, the Dolphins obviously playing in Cincinnati, and the final score 27-15. But I feel like all of that was kind of overshadowed by the Tua Tagovailoa injury. He went down in the second quarter. It was scary. 5 days after what we thought might have been a concussion this past Sunday. So it's 4 days later, right? And this guy gets hit, which wasn't even like that hard of a hit, that hard of a sack. And his arms immediately went into the fencing position. He was carted off, had a brace on his neck. Positive for the team. He flew back with the team in a neck brace. The scans came back negative. Mike McDaniel says he has a concussion. Um, for you, just your thoughts on the game overall, the Tua injury, Cincy in their helmets. I know all of it kind of didn't matter because it's like health and safety of a player over anything else. At the end of the day, like football's football. It's great. We love watching it, but you still want a 24-year-old guy like Tua. He has a whole life ahead of him.
And Tua has had injury problems in the past, unrelated to the concussion. A hip injury that cost him most of his rookie year, and that was always kind of the knock on him coming out of college was, is he going to be healthy enough to compete? Well, his team, his behind the scenes people, certainly did not do him any favors. And there's going to be a really big. There will be an. I don't want to comment. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any context on the injury itself, but what happened behind the scenes last week heading into this week will be under the microscope by independent neurologists, doctors, people behind the scenes that manage the health and safety of the players on a week to week basis. This will be a very big story going forward. I'm very grateful that Tua doesn't, at least for now, have any significant injuries that forced him to stay in the hospital overnight. You would trust that if the hospital doctors released him, that he at least is, okay to travel. I don't really care about football going forward, but at least he's gonna, keep his life. So that is very positive. I didn't really want to watch the game last night after that happened. Frankly, I was a little turned
Yeah,
off
it
just
was
by
hard.
the overall situation. It was hard to watch the second half of that game. But it's our job to talk about the gambling side of it. It's our job to talk about the betting impact that game had. And I can tell you that it kind of went, even though the Tua thing really threw a wrench in everything, that game was playing out, I thought, up to that point as expected. The Bengals offense came out with some fire. The Dolphins defense looked a little bit gassed. Tua, though, continued to be, and the Dolphins offense playing very well. And I think if Tua stays in that game and he doesn't get hurt, I think the Dolphins might have won that game, frankly.
Yeah.
At least that's how it was kind of trending towards me. I think the Bengals were a little conservative, as usual. It is really, really important to note that Cincinnati's offense still continues to be this kind of sputtering mess. They're running the ball on early downs way too much. And Joe
Mm-hmm.
Burrow looks like he's a little bit off. Now, that could change week to week, but this week it still looked a little bit settled with the Bengals offense. Bengals defense looked okay. They got after the passer. I think they missed DJ Reader a little bit in the middle. Mostert had a good game. But for the most part, I think Miami was on track to cover that game, maybe even win that game if Tua doesn't get hurt, because the Bengals offense still, Burrow's numbers look good, but it just, for some reason, completion percentage over expectation wasn't great. That's the part of his game, and the overall aggressiveness with Zach Taylor's early down scheme, I think needs to be tweaked a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And I told you after last week, like, I'm the biggest Bengals fan. I'm the biggest Joe Burrow fan. After last week against the Jets, sorry, Jared, it's the Jets, but they scored 13 points off of 4 turnovers, and that's how they won the game. Like, it wasn't because they really won the game. Like, I mean, they won the game, but, like, it was a lot to do with the turnovers that they forced. And their offense just isn't looking like their offense did last season. I feel like people are kind of figuring out their schemes. They're knowing how to guard. They're doubling down on Jamar Chase, who didn't really do much last night.
No.
So it's interesting to see how the Bengals are going to kind of adjust their schemes moving forward, because I feel like all of these teams were sitting there watching the Bengals in the offseason, and you're planning on how to play them next season. You see what they're doing, and they haven't really changed it up much since they were playing in the postseason last year. So that's going to be interesting. One more thing to say about Tua. It's just everyone tweeting out about, oh, I'm losing my bets because of Tua. Like, care about people's personal. Yeah, care about people personally. I was on the Dolphins plus 3.5. After he went out, that bet threw out the window. I'm like, hey, who cares? It's money. You'll make more of it. Move on. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how Tua, to be honest with you, I have a close family member that dealt with something similar, had 2 concussions within the same week, almost missed like a whole semester of high school, and was like bedridden for like a month. It's a lot. Like, those brain injuries are a lot. And obviously I'm not a doctor, but it looked a lot like the same thing that my close family member went through. So, like, seeing that firsthand and seeing Tua, like, coming back from those brain injuries isn't like breaking an ankle where you're 6 weeks, you're good to go. And it's different for every person. So it's going to be interesting to see how Tua starts to recover from this. But when you get 2 concussions in the same week, it's like the second concussion is like exponentially 10 times worse. You can read about it on Wikipedia.
I don't want to see Tua playing a football game the rest of the year, frankly. Like, I would be
he's probably
perfectly content with that. I'll add one more nerd number for you before we move on to kind of hammer the point home about the Bengals offense. So the Bengals had, and this is to speak to Zach Taylor's strategy, and this is why I think a big reason why the Bengals haven't been that successful. Shout out to Cleftier, by the way. Hit the team total over on the Bengals last night. That was a sweaty one, but he tweeted out this nugget this morning, and I want to echo it because I think it really does speak to overall what we're seeing with Cincinnati. The Bengals had 23 drives total last night. So there were 10 of them that started with a pass on first down. Of those 10, 80% of the drives, 8 out of 10, resulted in at least one first down. Of the 13 drives that started with a run, only 61.5% had successful first downs, at least one successful first down. So that just gives you a glimpse into when Zach Taylor's aggressive on early downs and they start with a pass, they are having success moving the ball. When you pound Joe Mixon into that crappy offensive line for 2.5 yards on first down, that's where the Bengals are running into problems, moving the chains and sustaining drives. It's a lesson to all head coaches and offensive coordinators. Pass the ball on early downs. Stop with this 1st and 10 run straight through the middle. It ain't working. That's old school NFL. We're in new school NFL now. Throw the ball down the field on first down. Rant over.
They rant over. And for the Dolphins, we'll see how Teddy B, the veteran, is a calming presence for this team moving forward. That is the guy that I would want. Like, if you look at any backup quarterbacks, that's probably one of my top 3 that I would choose to be a backup quarterback if my quarterback went down. So Teddy Bridgewater has been there, done that, calming force for a team. He's played for a variety of teams, variety of different offensive schemes. Seemed like a couple of the plays were a little off. Some of his throws were off, but, go over the playbook in the offseason.
Talk about a guy that understands really difficult injuries. I mean, he almost lost his leg on the football field with a knee injury a few years ago. So he, he understands the gravity of this moment. And I give a lot of credit to the Dolphins. They were in that game, and I texted you about like third quarter-ish. Like, the Dolphins cover and win this game. Like, that is some kind of spectacle for how, mentally strong they are to overcome an injury like that to their best player, the most important player, and still have the, the druthers, their calmness about them to win and cover that game. But I do think that was just a really, really tough spot for them after that injury happened. Really
Yeah.
tough to keep your focus.
For both teams, honestly, for both teams. But
Yes,
another key
yes.
injury that we're looking at heading into week 4, Sunday morning, we talk about that game in London. Jameis Winston now officially out. Andy Dalton confirmed to be starting for the Saints. So another key player in Jameis Winston out. They're going up against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. So something to definitely keep in mind when you're looking at your bets, your caps heading into that Vikings-Saints game early Sunday morning. Andy Dalton will be starting under center for the Saints. Let's get into some week 4 divisional games that we have going on right now. Let's start it in Dallas. The Commanders taking on the Cowboys. Right now, that spread, Cowboys laying 3.5, NFC East matchup. The Commanders got a can of whoop ass opened on them by the Eagles. Carson Wentz didn't necessarily get the game that you wanted against the team that drafted him. They didn't score a single point until the 4th quarter, where maybe the Eagles kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. But the Cowboys, 2-0, sans Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush, I'm a fan of him at this point, right? He's not like anything incredibly special, but he's still holding the offense together. They don't look lost. And the defense for the Cowboys is only allowing 17.3 points per game. The Commanders have been on the struggle bus. Cowboys have been cowmen at this point. And I think that they're going to get their 3rd straight win this week.
So a couple things. First of all, to your point on the Saints, doesn't look like a ton of line move there off the 2.5, despite this news today. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing in the Twitterverse amongst the sharps, 3 is probably the dividing line there. Even if Dalton does play, doesn't look like that line's going to move past 3. Secondly, so I just pulled up, and you'll get a kick out of this, or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll go cry. I just pulled up my odds screen and I hit refresh, and the first thing that popped up today was Golden State Warriors, Washington Wizards exhibition game. The NBA is back, baby. Exhibition
We're
games
back,
are coming
baby.
soon.
Let's go.
Totally unrelated note. All right, Cooper Rush. So I tweeted this out earlier this week. Top 5, and we talked about, what did we just talk about with early downs? We talked about it yesterday with Lamar Jackson and, the early down success rate that some of these quarterbacks are having in the NFL this year. And we just talked about it with the Bengals. When they run it on early downs, their drives are not doing well. When they pass it on early downs, their drives are having success. Early down success is a key metric to analyze one layer beneath just overall quarterback success. When I pull up the 5 most efficient quarterbacks, EPA, expected points added, plus CPOE, completion percentage over expectation. That's an efficiency grade we give these quarterbacks. When I pull up the early down rankings for quarterbacks in the NFL this season, 5 of them in the top 5, obviously. Lamar, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Cooper Rush, number 4.
Wow.
And Marcus Mariota. I mean, listen, he's playing. The numbers tell me he's playing very well on early downs. Does that mean it's going to continue this week? We'll see. A lot of action on the Cowboys this week, obviously, after their win on Monday night, national primetime game against the division opponent. Now they face Carson Wentz, who just got his butt whipped all over DC.
Got a can of whoop-ass open on him. Literally.
That was a whoop-ass.
So bad.
That was a whoop-ass can.
So bad.
And I felt it, too, because I was on the Commanders +7. So that being said, though, I'll be honest. Now that this line's moved off of 3, I don't have a lot of interest in Dallas. I think at 3, you can make a case to play Dallas. But at 3.5, I think it's probably a stay away. And you just watch Cooper Rush and you try to continue to see if he is a guy that the Cowboys should maybe be starting, even when Dak Prescott comes back. We're not there yet, but this game at 3, I think, 3.5 offers a lot, significantly less value. A low total divisional game, especially with, Washington coming off that really tough loss.
Some trends I will say, and I think a lot of this has to do with Washington not scoring until the 4th quarter against the Eagles, but the over in Dallas's games have each hit in their last 7 games, and the average total in those games is 52.9 points per game. The total for this one, 41.5. That's set almost 11 points lower than their last 7 games. So maybe the over could be a good spot to look here. And Dallas is 7-0 against the spread in their last 7 games against NFC East opponents. Also something to keep in mind heading into this weekend. Cowboys looking like cowmen the last couple of weeks. Guys that have not necessarily been looking like men, maybe, I don't know, the Colts and the Titans this season, both teams that we had a lot higher expectations for heading into the 2022-23 NFL season. This game is happening in Indy. The Titans are flying on up there. The spread right now set at 3.5. The Colts laying the points in this spot. The Titans finally got a win last week against the now winless Raiders, who really need a win this week. But also the Colts did the impossible. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Was it really the Colts beating the Chiefs? They did a good job limiting Patrick Mahomes, but also it was kind of the Chiefs special teams beating the Chiefs, and I'll stand on that. I'll take that to my grave. But the Titans did find their run game in week 3. It's going to be tough against the Colts defense that has allowed the third fewest rushing yards in the league. Last year, they hold Derrick Henry to 68 rushing on 28 carries. How do you feel like this game plays out? Can the Titans get it going, get themselves another win, or are the Colts going to build off of their win against Super Bowl second favorites in the Kansas City Chiefs?
Couple of injury concerns with the Colts. DeForest Buckner didn't practice, huge for him. That's going to be a big factor in stopping that running game for the Titans. The big boy in the middle, DeForest Buckner, first-round pick. That was the guy they traded with the Niners for, who's been a really good player for them, but he might not play this week. That being said, Shaq Leonard is back. That's huge. Absolutely huge. He might be one of the best defensive players in the NFL. We haven't seen him yet this year. He's been on the injury report for the first 3 weeks. It looks like he's going to be back in the lineup this week. You would say that's obviously positive for Indy, but then you have this looming specter of Matt Ryan hanging over this Colts team. Maybe it's Frank Reich that's the problem here. I don't know why a veteran like Matt Ryan, who has been to a Super Bowl, has had all the experience needed to go into a new system and to learn it quick, and he's got really, really good weapons around him. He has the league's leading rusher in the backfield. He has Michael Pittman, who is an all-pro wide receiver on one side. He has Alec Pierce, who's a up-and-coming wide receiver on the other side. And I know those guys were a little bit banged up too. But the Colts are last in the NFL in EPA per play on offense through 3 weeks. That can't happen when you have a good O-line, the league's leading rusher, and a couple of good wide receivers outside. That cannot be something that continues if Indy is to be taken seriously at all. There are a lot of bad offenses in the NFL. I wouldn't put the Colts on that list. But again, maybe it's Frank Reich. Maybe it's Matt Ryan. We'll find out a little more this week. On the Titans side, listen, Ryan Tannehill has played okay. I mean, again, I'm looking at that EPA plus CPOE composite grade that we talk about with quarterbacks. He's in the top 12 right now after 3 weeks. I can't put any of the Titans struggles on Ryan Tannehill. And that's without A.J. Brown and without Julio Jones this year. So they've made chicken salad out of chicken shit with that Titans offense. It's the Titans defense that really needs to play better. I have a feeling this is the week that Jonathan Taylor finally breaks out of his slump. Just a thought. The Titans defense has not been good against the run this year, almost a 50% success rate. And their EPA per play overall on defense is 30th out of 32 teams. Just a hunch. We get a good Colts offense this week, but the total is telling us it's going to be a really shit game again. So be wary of that. I don't see a world where the Colts don't win this game, but they've surprised me a couple times already this season.
Yeah, I mean, right now the total is set at 42.5 for this game. Tennessee O-line is injured. Their defense, like you said, isn't great. Their defense is giving up the fourth most rushing yards in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor looking at that like the cartoon eyes, getting ready to go. He's like, yes, fourth most rushing yards. Let's go, baby. But to be honest with you, this kind of smells like an under game for me. Colts defense might be the deciding factor in a game like this. Both offenses have really been struggling to move the ball through the air. I hate betting the unders, but I will say the total is hit the under in 6 of Tennessee's last 9 games, and the total is hit the under in each of Indy's last 8 games. So this could be a
divisional game too. These teams know each other very well. These two teams have been the best 2 teams in the division for the last 5 years or so during Mike Vrabel's tenure. Whenever the Colts have a healthy body of quarterback. So these teams have been solid. These teams have been the class of this division for a few years now. So I expect a nip and tuck game with a ton of intensity. And I think the fact that it's 3.5, despite that the Titans have been playing poorly, I think tells you it's going to be a tight game with a low total. And this isn't a game I want to bet. I'm staying away from this
Mm-hmm.
one.
Yeah, a game that I'm really confused about how to bet is the Broncos taking on the Raiders here. The Broncos played an absolute awesome game, 11-10 win last Sunday night. Loved seeing the
Barn
offense
burner.
there in that one. Oh, it was horrible. Denver only had 261 yards of offense in that game. And now the Raiders are the only team in the National Football League with an 0-3 record after dropping last week to the Titans. Game between two desperate teams. Vegas went 1 of 9 on third down conversions in that game. And those 3 losses that Vegas has are against teams that have now gone 0-6 in the other games that they've played so far. So this is going to be a tough challenge for the Raiders. They have a bottom 10 scoring defense, 346.7 total yards per game. I feel like Russell Wilson and the Broncos will want to take advantage of a game like this, get back on track. And I think Vegas is better than what we've seen from them so far. They have the pieces. Apparently the pieces just are not working together right now. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. I don't know. We'll see. The Denver's defense is also really good. They've given up the second fewest points in the league. So that might be tough for Derek Carr and company to go and try to get a win over the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, have you ever done a puzzle before and like you're convinced that this piece
You're
fits
missing
in
a
this
piece.
spot,
Yes.
and it just doesn't fit in that spot. You know, it's like you're looking at the puzzle piece and you're like, this is supposed to go here, and you keep trying to jam it in, and it doesn't go. That's what both of these teams I feel like have been like, especially the Broncos offense. It is kind of strength versus strength a little bit. Raiders offense against the Broncos defense, that's strength versus strength. I would say Broncos offense against the Raiders defense is weakness versus weakness. I would expect both the Broncos offense and the Raiders defense at some point to show some improvement. I think the Broncos offense has more upside in that regard, better players. You would think better scheme if Nathaniel Hackett ever pulls his head out of his ass and Russell Wilson can maybe wind back the clock 3 or 4 years. But the one thing I will say on this game, the line is very fishy. The Raiders opened as a favorite. It kind of opened as a pick 'em. And despite all we've seen, the Raiders sucking, as Lauren mentioned, and the Broncos have been kind of sputtering, this line really has moved towards Vegas. The professional money is very much in love with the Raiders in this spot. I don't see it. I trust the sharp money. They're not always right, but they tend to be right more often than they're wrong. In this spot, they really like Vegas. Maybe it's the 0-3. Maybe it's the desperation. Maybe it's a fade of the Broncos. I personally don't see it. I dropped my column last night. I teased Denver through both key numbers, 2 to 8, 2.5 to 8.5, wherever you get it. That's how I would play this game. I teased it with Arizona. Again, go read the column to find out why. But I don't see it with Vegas, but the professionals do. And -2.5, -2, that seems to be a spot that, the sharps really like the Raiders.
Yeah. Last but not least, battle of NFC West rivals, one of the toughest divisions in football. We have the Super Bowl champs, the reigning Super Bowl champs, going up against the 49ers. Right now, that spread is set at 2. Oh, it's 1.5 now. I'm looking at that. That spread is set at 1.5. The Niners laying $1.50. The Rams totally redeemed themselves in week 2 and 3 after getting crushed by the Bills in the opening game of the NFL season. Cooper Kupp been doing Cooper Kupp things. NFL best, 28 receptions. Niners are now 1-2. Jimmy G dropped his first game of the season. He went 18 of 29 for 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Absolute snoozer of a game against the Broncos. I can't repeat that enough. It was horrible. But hopefully we see a little bit more from the teams heading into this weekend. Last year, the Niners beat the Rams in the regular season series, and the Rams were like, not so fast, my friend. Pulled a Lee Corso, won the NFC Championship game for revenge, ended up winning it all. That was LA's first win against San Fran in 2018, since 2018. Can they get another win against San Fran in the regular season since 2018? This will be their first regular season win against them if they do win.
I'm going to lean to the no here. But I know you're very passionate about the Rams. So instead of giving you my take, I'm going to read to you a text message I received from one of my close trusted bookmaker friends last night about this game. Niners off a primetime loss. Public overreacts to that. Plus Jimmy getting another week under his belt after his late start in camp. Plus 49ers defense is elite. Plus contrarian home favorite equals SF with a heart emoji.
Mm-hmm.
Take for that what you will. I feel the same
Yeah.
about this game. I do think this is a good spot for the Niners, but the Rams are the Super Bowl champs. And I think they're a team
Mm-hmm.
that you have to take seriously, but I don't think they've looked like the Super Bowl champs so far. There's a case to
Yeah.
be made for both teams in this game, a very logical case. I kind of lean to my bookmaker friends' contrarian nature a little bit, but I can absolutely see a world where the Rams play a lot better than they've played in recent weeks in their because they played well against the Cardinals. I think they played well enough to win that game
Yeah.
on Sunday against a Cardinals team that was pretty desperate for a win. And now they have to face another divisional team in a primetime spot. Tough game, fun game. Excited that this is the Monday night game and not, some other shit matchup. But
Yeah.
this is going to be one of those spots where I think the Niners get a lot of professional money and the Rams take a lot of public money. Just my thoughts.
Cool. The one thing that has me leaning towards the Rams a little bit is that the 49ers are without Trent Williams, which hurts San Fran's rush attack a lot. And also Jimmy G is way more vulnerable to a Rams D-line that has 7 sacks through 3 weeks this season. That's the one thing I'm kind of like, maybe the Rams. I'm going to marinate on it a little bit. We still have a little bit of time.
You can make a case for both sides.
Because it is only Friday.
You can make a very valid argument for both sides. No doubt.
I will also say the Rams are 6-0 straight up in their last 6 away games. Another just little nugget to chew on there as we take it from men to boys. College football. I know you have your show tomorrow, Jared, but let's go through your slate really quick. Week 4 of NFL means week 5 of college football. Got to get into some of our best bets this weekend. Please go through your slate with me for tomorrow.
So we would need like a 2-hour show for me to go through my entire college football slate. I have
ain't nobody got time for that.
No, I have 9 college football bets.
Like a 5 to 8 minute overview.
Well, here's what I'll say. I have a bet locked. I have actually 3 bets locked in for tonight. We'll get into one of them later. The other one's a middle, so we won't even touch that because it's not available for you guys to bet at that number right now. But for Saturday, I've got a shitload of bets on the card. I will tweet out my full card on Saturday morning, but I'll give you my top 3 looks for now. One of them, Lauren and I are going to go crossfire on, but we'll start with Iowa, and we'll start with the Hawkeyes catching 10.5. This is a really
against Michigan
game. I know Lauren's not going to like. I feel like we are not going to be friends on Saturday. We're going to be going head to head in a lot of these games, but Michigan can win by 10, and I'll be perfectly content with that result. This line was Michigan -3 over the summer. You want to talk about an impactful move through 4 weeks. It's crossed over 3. It's crossed over 7. It's crossed over 10. And now we're at 10.5. I even saw it touch 11 at one point earlier this week before we started to see some of that Iowa buyback. And listen, this is not a game about Iowa. This is about Michigan. This is Michigan's first real test. They played 3 absolute cupcakes, the delicious kind that Lauren and I like to eat on Saturday mornings before we watch football. They were creamy and just moist cupcakes. They ran right through them.
I hate that word.
I'm sorry. I know that word's very polarizing. Then they played Maryland on Saturday. And Maryland did something that no other – first of all, Maryland has a pulse compared to UConn, Colorado State, and Hawaii, who do not have pulses. Maryland did something that no of those other 3 teams did. They ran the ball right down Michigan's throat, 5 yards per carry, over 50% success rate on running plays. And you're just like, whoa, wait a minute. We haven't seen that all year with Maryland or Michigan's defense. Michigan's defense lost a ton in the draft. Ojabo, Hutchinson, a ton of other starters. Their middle linebacker hasn't played much yet this year. I'm a little bit concerned that physicality might be a problem for Michigan's defense. Now, they might show up and just say, screw you guys, we're just going to run right through Iowa. They have the talent to do that, but we haven't seen it yet. J.J. McCarthy, this is his first true test on the road in a hostile environment, and then you throw in the trend of Kinnick Stadium, which has been a house of horrors for top 5 teams. Top 5 teams going into Kinnick are 1-6 against the number over the last 2 decades. Not covering by an average of 15 points. So they are not only failing to cover, they are missing the mark by over 2 touchdowns. I'm just a little bit – now, Iowa's offense scares the crap out of me. Spencer Petras has been brutal this year. Their offensive line's playing a little bit better. Their running game's starting to get a little bit of youthful exuberance. Couple of youngsters, LaShawn Williams, Caleb Johnson, have been solid in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if Iowa has the horses to win this game, but I wouldn't be shocked if J.J. McCarthy makes a silly turnover and, the offensive line, maybe a couple of false starts because the crowd's going nuts. And those types of little things I could see happening at Kinnick on Saturday. And 10.5 is a really big number. So to me, this is a decent spot, I think, to buy Iowa. I'm also betting Cal this week, not only the spread, but the money line as well. They are at Washington State. I don't know how hungry you are right now, Miss Lauren Anjabara, but this is the ultimate sandwich game. This is a sandwich game. Washington State blows the game at Oregon last week. Actually, excuse me, they were at home. They blow the game to Oregon last week. They almost didn't even cover that game, despite being a 6-point underdog, up 2 scores in the final 5 minutes. They blow that game. Now, next week, they have to face USC on the road in a huge game. USC is arguably the best team in the Pac-12. Now, this week, they have to face little old Cal. Well, little old Cal's been running the ball down people's throats. Keep an eye on Jaden Ott, true freshman running back, averaging 8 yards per carry this year. He had 274 and 3 tutties against Arizona, ripping off 14.4 yards per carry. I like their quarterback, Jack Plummer, fifth-year senior, came over from Purdue, ton of experience, isn't going to be fazed by going to Pullman and playing in that weird crowd at Washington State. And listen, these are two, in my opinion, very evenly matched teams. They're both averaging 30 points a game. They're both allowing 20 points a game. Catching 4 in a good situational spot here, sandwich game, feels like a decent look with the Golden Bears. So I'll give you Iowa plus 10.5. I'll give you Cal plus 4, plus a little money line sprinkle. And now we can get into our showcase showdown game.
Yeah.
Between
I'll
Iowa
let you go first
and
on this one. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, you want to have the last word, don't you?
Yeah.
You want to have the last word.
Always.
Yeah, that makes sense. Most of the females in my relationships usually like to have the last word, and they usually get the last word. That's been my vibe. I'm sorry. I love you. All right. I'll be honest, I didn't write up a ton on this game. I really just think this is a good sell high spot for Kansas. When I look at teams early in the year that are covering the spread by double digits, the market tends to violently swing in their direction. And usually the value, whether or not you like the matchup or not, the value tends to be on the other side of that. So when I look at Kansas 4-0 against the spread, covering by 17.5 points, that's like the most average points per game any team in the country is covering so far through the first few weeks. And then I look at this Kansas team and I dive into the guts of what they've been able to do. And it's a lot of, kind of hocus pocus on third downs, which is a very volatile statistic. I mean, they're second in the country in third down conversion rate. Iowa State's a top 25 team preventing third down conversion rate. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a violent regression with Kansas's conversion rates on third downs. Does that mean Iowa State's going to win the game? No, they still have to go out and go into Lawrence and, play well on offense. But I think defensively, they're going to be able to keep this Kansas offense buttoned up more than, Duke did, buttoned up more than West Virginia did. So I think it's a tough matchup for Kansas's offense against the really good Iowa State defense. And I think the market's telling me this hasn't moved off of 3. You would think with all the money coming in on Kansas, and there is a lot of money coming in on Kansas, they're all the rage right now, this line would have dipped below 3 as a home dog. It hasn't gotten there yet. And I think that's the market trying to tell me that Iowa State's the right side. Market's been wrong before, but in this spot, I tend to trust the market.
Give me the underdog in Kansas plus 3 at home. The only undefeated team right now in the Big 12. Good teams win, great teams cover, and Kansas has done both through 4 weeks. 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread. And I know you mentioned Iowa State's defense. Yes, they're set to face their first defense that actually knows how to stop the run. They're 7th in the nation at that. They're allowing 2.7 yards per carry, but they're still outside the top 50 nationally in offensive and defensive success rate. I know that Kansas's quarterback, Jalen Daniels, needs to take advantage of the air. They have been really good at third downs, like you mentioned. I know it's kind of like a scary stat to like, but they are converting 67% of the time, second in the nation behind Indy, and they're averaging 7.2 yards per play. I love Kansas's offense in general. Iowa State's defense has to watch out for Daniels through the air and on the ground. I feel like they haven't faced a quarterback yet that they need to prep for like that, that's both good through the air and on the ground. Kansas's defense is what worries me, and that's why this total is set like in the mid 50s right now. This is going to be a lot of a high scoring, a lot of points scored game. Points. But their defense or their offense usually holds. Their defense gives up a lot of points. Their offense scores a lot of points. They hold things together. The good thing is Iowa State, I feel like over the last couple of weeks, hasn't taken a lot of chances or big risks. So the defense could be okay. I feel like that stems from a lot of the PTSD of throwing 2 picks in their loss to Baylor and then 3 turnovers against Iowa. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago whenever they played Iowa? So I know Iowa State is 7-0 in their last 7 games between these two teams, but Kansas is 7-0 against the spread in each of their last 7 games. Good teams win, great teams cover. Kansas is going to cover this one. Give me them at home with the momentum, home crowd behind them, and getting the points. This is going to be an extremely close game, but I do feel like Iowa State's probably going to win. I feel like Kansas is going to cover. So that's just my.
So you think it's going to be really close?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be
the
1-2.
The only way that happens is the game lands on 1 or 2. Unless you got a 3 and a hook.
I think it's going to be 1 2-point game.
Wow. All right. So because we talked about this pre-show and you were very excited to spontaneously come up with a swag bet for us to make on this game. Well, now I'm putting you on the spot. What's our swag bet for this game? What happens if Iowa State covers? What do I get in this little transaction here?
If Iowa State covers, I will wear a Kansas hat on the show. But in the nice way.
Kansas.
Or I'll wear an Iowa State hat on the show, and you have to.
Hold on. Iowa State doesn't hold that much regard in you. You have to wear an Ohio State hat on the show. You have to wear an Ohio State hat.
Okay, and you have to. Who's the team that you hate more than anything in the world? I don't even know this.
I would say the Patriots, maybe.
Okay, you have to wear Patriots
or the Red Sox.
Or you have to wear a shirt that says. You have to wear a shirt or something that says Penn State sucks.
No, I won't do that. I will not cross that line.
Penn State, but I will. The top 25 poll to start the season.
Where am I going to find a shirt like that, Jabara? What do you think? I've got a
you just write it
factory in my backyard.
Yeah.
How about this? No. I like the idea of. I think we're on to something. I like the idea of wearing school colors of teams we truly dislike. I will actually, to be perfectly fair, I hate Ohio State too. So whoever loses,
both wear. Have to wear an Ohio State shirt, hat.
Ohio State. Yes. Well, whoever loses will have to wear a piece of it. Could be a shirt, a hat, doesn't really matter. A piece of Ohio State swag on the show.
Perfect.
Oh no.
I'm in.
Oh no. My friends might disown me for this. They might disown me as I wear my Penn State shirt on the show.
It's okay. All right. One more bet that I'm looking at, and I'll get more in depth into it tomorrow. It's the Navy Air Force game, and I love the under, even with the total set low. It's the game we look forward to every single year. The only game where I don't get the under sweats betting on an extremely low under. They both run option offenses, which means they're going to run the ball a ton, which means they're going to run out the clock, which means they're not going to have as many possessions. When you have less possessions, not as many points are scored. And because the defenses are also practicing against option offenses, you are used to seeing it. You know how to defend it. And also just stat for you, unders have gone 41, 9-1 in the games between all service academies since 2005.
That's wild. That's a wild stat. That's a wild
41,
stat.
9-1. Honestly, I don't even need to give a cap on this. Just unders have gone 41, 9-1 since 2005 between service academies. Enough said.
Insane.
Enough said. I'll get into it more tomorrow. I have quite a few more games that I am looking at heading into tomorrow's game. But first of all, let's talk about our show. Let's bet it, because it is presented by Superbook Sports, you guys. We love Superbook Sports, the best place to bet football this season. Download the Superbook app or visit superbook.com right now, and they're going to match your first bet up to $1,000, whether it wins or whether it loses. Plus, they already have lines up for every NFL game the rest of the season. So week 18, baby. Here we go. The number 1 voted sportsbook in Vegas, now available in the palm of your hand. Visit superbook.com to join. Make sure to check it out. Now let's visit Pickswise.com, Jared. 3-star play of the day. Who do we got?
To the refresh here. Nothing for tonight. Lot for tomorrow, though,
Okay.
obviously. Stephen Hall's got Illinois, Wisconsin total. Zeno's got Kentucky, Mississippi, Arkansas, Bama game, picks. Chris Ukasian, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Michigan State, Maryland. And then Angelo Zara, MLS, Galaxy, Real Salt Lake. So I see 6 3-star plays on the site for tomorrow. Nothing for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So you're stuck in our fateful
You know
hands
what? You're
for this
stuck
evening.
with our play of the days tonight. You're stuck with our play of the days tonight. So let's talk about you and your UTSA spread bet that you have going into Friday.
Meet, Roadrunners. Love this
You
spot
love
for
'em.
UTSA. So this is like the ultimate letdown game. We talk about the sandwich game with Wazoo, facing Oregon last week, USC next week. This is the ultimate letdown game. The Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders strolled into Coral Gables on Saturday and put a whooping on the Miami Hurricanes. Now everyone's talking about how good MTSU is, blah, blah, blah. Well, I think UTSA is pretty good too. And the thing about UTSA that I really like is they challenge themselves in the non-conference. Listen to this gauntlet. 3 overtime loss against Houston, team that won the American last year. Win at Army, tight win. Field goal game, 41-38, back and forth, early game on the East Coast for UTSA. Then they had to go to Texas, tied the Longhorns at the half, ended up losing by 3 scores. Finally, they got a break last week. They rolled over Texas Southern. But 3 really tough games to start the season. This is a battle-tested UTSA bunch that was the conference champs last year. Now we see our first conference game this year in Conference USA. I love Frank Harris, the quarterback for the Roadrunners, leads all of college football in total scrimmage yards. 1,300 passing, 162 rushing. He's got a stud wide receiver on the outside, DeCorian Clark, grading out top 10 amongst all wide receivers. And this is UTSA, and they've got a receiver grading out top 10 amongst the entire country. To me, this is an experienced, very talented, fast UTSA offense going up against the Middle Tennessee defense that's been average this year. The Middle Tennessee offense has also been average to below average. They got blasted week 1 by JMU, who's been good this year, but their wins over Tennessee State and Colorado State might be the worst team in the FBS. Not very impressive. That win over Miami was like this very outlier data point that I'm not taking very seriously. Chase Cunningham's not a guy to me that scares me. Took a bunch of deep shots against Miami, hit those deep shots. How about this? 16 completions against the Hurricanes for 408 yards. That's 16 yards per attempt. Goodness gracious.
Crazy.
That's not sustainable. I think UTSA has a couple of dudes on the outside that can, contain this passing offense for Middle Tennessee. Corey Mayfield grading out top 150. Nick Troy Fortune, senior corner, grading out inside the top 50 of all cornerbacks in the country. This UTSA team's really good, and I don't think we're giving them enough credit considering the spot and considering the fact that Middle's coming off this crazy win. I feel like UTSA is going to control the tempo in this game. So I feel very confident laying 4 points with the Roadrunners. Meet. Play of the day, UTSA -4.
I love it. I'm taking mine to the Mountain West Friday night matchup. San Diego State University taking on Boise State, and I like SDSU getting 6.5 points here because Boise State is having themselves an absolute dumpster fire of a season. They lost to UTEP last week by 17 points. Then after that game, they fired their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach and Tim Plow. And then right after that, their starting quarterback entered the transfer portal. Last time I checked, it ain't great when your starting quarterback enters the transfer portal 4 weeks into the season. Now they're playing Talon Green under center. It's Friday Night Lights, but I don't know how well that's going to suit a guy like this here. Boise State's passing game has been horrendous. Their running game hasn't made much of a difference either. Their offense has been averaging under 300 yards per game. Now you look at SDSU, their run game has been really good. They're averaging 220 yards per game from the backfield. Their defense has been even better. They forced 4 turnovers alone last week against Toledo, but they need their passing game to get going. They've only passed for 73 yards per game on average this season. And they are quite literally last in the nation in yards per completion. They have the second worst passing attack in college football. They need Braxton, their quarterback, to come in clutch and cover the spread here for us. Now, I'm coming in here looking at Boise State, not feeling confident betting them in any aspect, especially with them laying 6.5 points. They should not be laying almost a touchdown against anybody with the issues that they're dealing with right now. They're 2-2, but their wins were against New Mexico and UT Martin. And they're favored by a touchdown here. How? what are we seeing in Vegas? Not to like shit on the odds makers, but like, what are we seeing right now in boys? I mean, like, there's nothing that makes me confident about betting them here because they're at home. They're only 6-4 at home since 2020 and 4-6 against the spread. They're a train off its track, and I don't want to get in their way at this point. So give me SDSU plus 6.5, baby, at Boise State Friday night lights. That's it for us today, guys. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to Pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. Gerard Smith, Laurent Jabara. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's get it. Peace.